Morning, everybody, and welcome to CEO Chat. My name is Al Cini.
I'm Joe Osmendi.
I'll shake your hand.
Well, thank you, Al.
Oh, look forward to it, and now you can let go. And well, we have a terrific guest lined up for you today, a guy who wears many hats. His name is Michael Brozetti, and you're the principal, Michael, of Boundless,
Thanks, Joe.
and it's audit risk and compliance management. Isn't that right?
Correct. Yes.
What is that?
Yeah.
Tell us what you do for a company.
So in a simple context, business is about risk taking, right? Every company, by its very nature, takes risk, and you hope to take risk to receive some type of a reward. Risk management is very much about minimizing the things that can go wrong, maximizing things that can go right. And audit is very much about making sure the things that you think are happening in your organization actually are. So I think that's a simple way to frame up risk management and audit and the compliance with all the different things that you want to be compliant to, whether those are laws and regulations, your own internal policies, or even just good business practices.
Oh, great. And you said your customers are typically Fortune 500 clients who will engage you for anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years on various projects.
Yeah, most of the larger organizations do have formal audit or risk management functions and departments within their organizations. So those are typically the clients that most often have a need for my expertise. But I think the disciplines and principles of good risk management and audit practices are really something that every company can benefit from.
Now, when you end up involved in one of these engagements, you're brought in from a financial compliance perspective, but
Yeah.
you get into operations too, don't you?
I do, and typically the functions that would engage my services could be the audit function, which generally a lot of times will reside within the overall finance structure of the organization. Not always, but it's pretty common that it would. Another area where I engage with is sometimes it's the technology groups. Technologies oftentimes have the same type of risk and kind of compliance issues that you'd see operationally, and because we live in such a data-driven environment, it's not uncommon that chief information officers and the IT functions are getting mandated with building out good risk management programs, good controls within their process and system structure. So that's another kind of avenue or area where I could engage with.
Great. Who do you typically work with inside of a company?
Generally, it's going to be the first level managers that report to either the CIO or maybe the CFO. Those are generally the folks that are oftentimes tasked with more of the tactical operational implementation of risk management and various compliance projects. And of course, as you get in kind of further into the organization, there's going to have specialists within their respective areas within the group. So it's not uncommon where I'd work with 6 to a dozen kind of key stakeholders within my client organizations.
So these are EVP level, C-suite.
Oftentimes they're ultimately the stakeholders that are accountable for the type of work that I assist with. And I say assist with because a lot of the expertise I bring is helping organizations kind of set up and stand up the types of risk management and audit structures that are going to be sustainable. That helps them manage risk in the long term, and it's not just something that you kind of come in where you're once and done. There's a lot of, I think, change management that goes along with that in terms of your processes and adapting your processes, improving the controls around your processes so that ultimately you can get the types of outcomes consistently. And repeatedly within your organization.
Okay.
Do you do any service companies?
I have worked with service companies. It's interesting, a lot of the discipline that I have, my expertise, I've been in the financial services space, I've been within the healthcare space, professional services space, the utility space. There's a lot of sort of core discipline and expertise. So what's fun for me is I get to learn a lot about a lot of different industries. So whether it's energy, whether it's healthcare, whether it's financial services, I really get a chance to learn myself by also helping my clients kind of bring the expertise that they don't have into their organizations.
When you were doing healthcare, did you get involved with the Joint Commission at all?
No. A lot of the healthcare work is generally around a lot of the the regulation. So some of a lot of the HIPAA stuff, you know, a lot of things around privacy, you know, that's always a big concern. That's where a lot of the work that I've done within the healthcare space has been, as well as sort of general assessments of technology controls, meaning, you know, it's important to have data privacy practices, but when you think about your technology infrastructure, another vulnerable area is just the security and the controls you have around your actual systems themselves, data centers and your hardware and your applications that sit on the hardware. So all of the infrastructure behind the actual patient data is important to kind of look at and understand and make sure you have assurance around the control structures.
And you have to represent all this to potential auditors or inspectors from different government agencies.
Yeah,
I mean, you're really defending them against that possibility that they might be found not in compliance.
that's actually a really good point, and I like to, you know, it's kind of like being the sparring partner, right? To make sure that your clients are prepared for those third-party examinations, right? And it could be the financial auditors, it could be regulators, it could be you know, various independent parties coming in doing their own audits. So while I've been on that side, working at one of the big 4 accounting firms and kind of coming in as the external auditor, you know, I've gained an appreciation of how do you really help prepare your clients to kind of withstand and be able to withstand that audit scrutiny and do it in a healthy, constructive way, right? I mean,
Yeah, in a positive way. I mean, because it's not just about
it's not
getting away with anything.
It's not, and you know, frankly, I think that, you know, some of the compliance and the regulatory rules over there, you know, you have to ask yourself the question: is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act or the Dodd-Frank Act, which were those big sweeping pieces of legislation that came out, are they really the solution to prevent the next financial crisis? And you know, as a practitioner, kind of peeling the onion back and seeing and knowing what I know, you know, I think it's drawn the attention to good risk management and control practices. I think that's a positive. Is it going to stop the next financial crisis? I guess time is going to tell. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at where things really fail, is there really a way to legislate that away? And I just don't believe there is. I mean, there's always a bad actor behind the scenes. There's always someone that can override, you know, the process or the controls. And you know, those are the trickier things to prevent. So I would kind of say, while it is healthy to have a good foundation of risk management, good control structure in place, you want to make sure that it's pragmatic, and you want to make sure that it's managing and addressing the most significant risks in your organization, that you're embedding them into your processes, so it's not just an extra thing to do, but it's actually part of your mindset and your mentality, and you really integrate it in to your day-to-day business as usual processes.
If it's a business practice that's making people a lot of money, it's hard to identify it as a non-compliant practice that we need to move away from, because everybody, while they're benefiting from it, is not going to want to see it as something they need to regulate. But that's where the real risk lives.
A lot of times, yeah.
When that hits the fan, and sooner or later it will, it could be a very, very big, you might have to write a very big check about that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, you know, when you think about risk, there's all different kinds of risk, but categorically you kind of have like strategic risk, you have operational risk, you have what is commonly referred to as financial reporting risk. So Sarbanes-Oxley being, you know, kind of that first piece of sweeping legislation after Enron, you know, kind of took the position of saying, well, we need better controls on how companies are reporting their financials. Right. And there's all these detailed things you need to do now to make sure you're categorizing your assets properly, and you have the right procedures in place and the right controls. But at the end of the day, was it really about financial reporting, or was it really about sort of the culture of the business, the operational and strategic risks of the business that really made it fail? You know, Lehman Brothers is a fast forward when Lehman Brothers collapsed. I mean, that's another good example where you look at, you know, the nuances of how they failed and why they failed, and it was really kind of a cultural risk that I don't think you can really legislate or prevent.
If
it's
it's going to feel good to do bad things, people are going to find a way to do them.
That's
and
right. That's
We're
right.
gonna take a break right
Yeah,
now.
we're gonna, when we come back though,
Yeah.
there's a whole other area we want to explore, which is how you take this big corporation experience and help small and medium-sized businesses with it
Sure.
through ELAB, Executive Leaders
Sure.
for Advisory
That
Boards.
sounds good.
Yeah, so we'll be right back after these messages with more CEO Chat and Mr. Michael Brozetti.
Yep, don't go away. Be right back.
Good.
They are the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. But what does it take to strengthen our service members? What does it take to let them know that we stand behind them, wherever they are? What does it take to bridge the distance and keep them connected to family, home, and country? And what does it take to prepare them for their future when their service to the nation is complete? What does it take to strengthen our service members so they can be the greatest force for good in the world? It takes a force. Be a force behind the forces. Share a message.
Pop up on the screen there. Welcome back to CEO Chat. My name is Al Cini,
I'm still Joe Osamendi.
and our guest is Michael Brozetti. And Michael, we were talking during the break about the big company, pretty well-known logo, Price Waterhouse, PwC, that you worked for before you became an independent CIA compliance officer. Talk a little bit about your background at PwC.
Sure. So I did start my audit career really at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And they're a big firm. They're worldwide. Very good at knowledge management. Very good at training. So I was able to learn a lot. Learn a lot from that experience. And then I took the plunge and kind of started my own practice. And this was in early 2000. And I know you've been mentioning the CIA. So I do have a designation CIA. It's not the Central Intelligence
not
Agency.
the fun CIA. It's
No,
the-
it's Certified Internal Auditor is what the designation stands for. Yeah, it kind of worries people sometimes.
Yeah.
It got really scary when I was also a member of the National Speakers Association. That was NSA, so it was NSA,
NSA and the
CIA,
CIA, that was-
and then people really thought I was, working for the government. But the CIA designation and really the shift from PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is an external auditing firm, was my shift was into internal auditing.
Right.
So the CIA is a certified internal auditor designation, and that designation is really promulgated by the Institute of Internal Auditors for internal auditors. So these are generally folks that are working directly for the organization and report up to that organization's, ultimately the audit committee, to help them with their own internal audit processes. So things that help prepare them for external audits, things that help give them assurance over their risk and their compliance activities.
Great. Okay, now you're currently taking all that experience with one fairly big player, plus a lot of big companies you work with. You're making that available through something called the Executive Leaders for Advisory Boards, ELAB. Maybe you can spend a minute explaining what ELAB is to people.
Sure. So Executive Leaders for Advisory Boards is a Philadelphia-based organization that really specializes in helping growth companies connect with prospective board advisors. So the role of a board, an advisory board, is a non-fiduciary role. So its benefit to CEOs of smaller companies is to get experience of founders, owners, entrepreneurs with varying backgrounds and expertise to help give them strategic guidance on things that they should be thinking about and things that they should be doing to grow their company. So to your point, Al, a lot of my sort of big company experience with auditing and risk management certainly has disciplines in principles that are valuable to smaller and middle-sized CEOs, without having the formal structure of needing a whole department to do it. But like I said at our opening, business is very much about risk taking. And at the heart, risk management is really about maximizing those things that you want to go right and minimizing those things that you want to go wrong.
Right.
And there's really a discipline to ensure that and help do that.
And when you're talking about doing that for small and medium-sized companies, how large, what's the typical company size?
So my experience is companies could be a couple million in revenue, so they've sort of passed their proof of concept phase, they're in the process of growth, up to 50 million. But I think more blanketly, advisory boards could certainly go up to companies that are up to 500 million plus. And we certainly, as part of the ELAB organization, have advisors that have had a breadth of experience from pre-revenue startups to that $500 million range, if you will, and a couple of members even serve on public boards. Well, that's not the focus of ELAB, but just in terms of the experience and breadth of some of the advisors that ELAB has, they are of a very high caliber.
No, that's great. Now, ELAB is a team of, I think, about 50 different professionals like yourself who specialize in different areas, who could be pulled together for advisory boards of 3 or 4 or 5 people focused on a specific challenge that a company might be facing. I don't know if I have that right. Let me know if I...
So, I mean, advisory boards are pretty loose in terms of what's the best advisory board structure for me. It could certainly be 2 or 3 people. It could be 4 or 5. It really isn't kind of a set number. You got to figure out what works best for you, what's in your budget, how often do you want to meet. Ultimately, to your point, Al, what goals are you trying to obtain and achieve? So I think all those factors have to play in to determine what would be the best advisory board structure for your organization, your company, based on sort of what your needs are.
And the outcome of it is to try to get a company from wherever they are to maybe a better path to growth, which is really what and that's Growth Company Catalyst?
So there is a program within ELAB that's called Growth Company Catalyst, and what that program was designed to do, it was really to help orient companies that maybe haven't thought about or they're starting to think about, is an advisory board right for me? And a way that we introduce them to the membership is we ask companies, and they go through a qualification process, but we ask them to bring to the table some specific concerns or challenges that they're currently facing, where they might want some advice, and present that to a group of advisors and really use it as a real-time session to get feedback, to kind of go through the mechanics of what an advisory board session could look like, to give them some perspective and some insight and bridge the gap between the prospective companies and the prospective advisors to potentially have a formal relationship going forward.
And there are thousands of companies. Are you focused on the Philadelphia area, greater Philadelphia area? So that's Philadelphia, South Jersey, maybe Delaware?
Sure.
We're talking about that. And I know there are thousands of companies in the area that could be potentially clients for ELAB.
Sure, no, absolutely. I mean, there's thousands of companies right in the local area. And one of the things that ELAB has really targeted for is the live local interaction. So it's really serving the greater Philadelphia area with local-based professionals. Right. So you have local expertise that you could take advantage of, and you're not, flying all over or doing everything virtual. Certainly a time and place for virtual and teleconference, but at the same time, it's nice to have sort of a local footprint.
Well, great. And what are some of the specialty areas that ELAB advisory board members have? Yeah,
so we do have a good mix of folks. I mean, everything from strategy, finance expertise, legal expertise, operational expertise, industry expertise, and we certainly have some folks that are very specific in certain types of industries that could be valuable to a company depending on what they're looking for in an advisory board. So very, very broad, I think, deep expertise of the 50 advisors.
And like you, they're all independent business people,
very
running
much
their
so.
own businesses and...
Very much so. I mean, some of them, they're founders of companies, they're entrepreneurs, they're executives. I think it's probably fair to say, most of the folks have had their life cycle of successes, right? As well as their failures. And I'll be the first one to tell you that, success is born out of every 9 failures, and the failures you sometimes learn the most out of.
Sure.
So, I think the success of the group is pretty much all individual based, and for the most part, very, very many of the members have owned their own business or been a big shareholder in a business.
And the person who hooked us up is Candida Cisak. Remember her?
Yeah, absolutely.
Candida
Yes.
is, she's been on the program.
Yeah,
and
wonderful
I know
woman.
She's a key player in the ELAB organization.
Sure. She really founded it several years ago with the idea of, again, bringing that local-based organization that can help growth companies by setting up advisory boards and harnessing the value of advisory boards. There's generally a cost to having an advisory board, but when you think about the expertise that you can get out of that, rather than hiring a full-time expert, it would be very unlikely that a growth company needs a chief audit executive staffed in their organization, right? However, it's not uncommon that a growth company is going to start running into compliance issues or risk issues that they want to address. So structuring that expertise in an advisory board might be something that makes sense.
Yeah, they get as much of it as they need and not any more of it than they need, which is great.
That's right.
One other thing, I know that you've also got a cleaning business that you started with your wife. I mean, you understand a small business from that perspective.
So I am very entrepreneurial, kind of started up my own consulting business in early 2000. In, I guess it was 2007, my wife and I started a commercial janitorial cleaning business. And this is really my wife's company. She operates this thing. I kind of bring in my expertise where I can in terms of an advisory capacity of processes and controls and scalability. But we've been through the ringer of kind of seeing that grow.
Sure.
From a
Hiring
small business.
people, finding talent, keeping them, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and kind of going through the mechanics of proof of concept to growth mode.
Right.
And that's very much where the company is today. I mean, it's been proven. We're going on it'll be 12 years in business.
Congratulations, that's great.
We've been able to achieve triple-digit growth in terms of percent revenue increase over the past 3 years. So it's really reached a point of, I think, pretty significant growth. And while I have to give my wife all the credit for operating it, my mindset is always on, well, how do we scale? How do we build processes and controls that can manage our risk, whether it's HR risk, people risk, cash flow risk. I mean, you run into all of these different risk areas as an entrepreneur, and I'm constantly thinking, and it's my nature, well, what can go wrong? And what do we do to prevent something from going wrong? Or minimizing something from going wrong? So that's the nature of kind of how I think some of the big company experience that I have translates into that smaller to middle-sized market.
And it's, we're at that part of the program where you get to look in the camera and tell everybody how to reach you.
Yeah.
One good thing about all this is that anybody who calls you to find out more about how ELAB can help them is going to be getting your experience as a small business person, entrepreneur, in addition to all the big company compliance experience you've got. So look straight in your camera, tell everybody how to get a hold of Michael Brozetti.
Sure, well, you can feel free to reach out and contact me. Mike@boundlessllc.com is a good email. In terms of if you have anything where you are looking to maximize the things that can go right in your company, minimizing those things that can go wrong, feel free to give me a call and have a conversation. Love to see how I might be able to help you in advisory capacity or connect you with some people within ELAB that might be a good fit.
Mike Brozetti, what a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today on CEO Chat.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
And thanks all of you for tuning in and watching. We'll be back again with more CEO Chat next week. Until then, I'm Alcini.
Joe Osmendi.
And you have a great weekend.
Be safe, sound, and get back here next Friday.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, really good. Really good. Thank you very much.